We never know where life will lead us or what may hinder us along the way. But while every day can feel like one big question mark, it doesn't have to. With the right insights, strategies, and solutions from Western and Southern Financial Group, together we can look ahead to leave the unknown behind.
Dinner with Chris Collinsworth on Monday. He invited me to this nice dinner in the private room at Jeff Ruby's here in Cincinnati, one of the nicest steakhouses in Cincinnati. Also has a dish named after Chris Collinsworth. Yeah. 2 dishes now. The lobster and the steak is named after Collinsworth. I don't know if he's getting royalties on that. He was surprised as well, which I found you don't have to double check with him. Yeah. I don't know how that works. But he said he listens to the podcast all the time. So you're listening to a podcast, by the way, that Chris Collinsworth, Emmy award-winning Chris Collinsworth, by the way. They won another Emmy. I think that was announced late last night. He listens to this podcast as well. He said, if this dinner doesn't make the podcast, I don't know. I'm going to be really upset. But
what were the highlights from it?
Some highlights. The food was obviously fantastic. Yeah. He told a story about when he went one-on-one against Lester Hayes. Okay. And that was when Lester Hayes was wearing a ton of stickum on his hands. And this was an unreal story because, the original question was what has changed so much about the game? And he said the gloves make it so much harder to drop footballs in today's NFL compared to, he only wore gloves in 2 games. Or one in the Arctic Bowl or whatever when it was minus 59 degrees. And then in his last game, he wore gloves. And they weren't even close to what they are now. But anyway, against Lester Hayes, he said he knew Lester Hayes to talk a lot of trash and to get in your head. He said on the first play, I'm going to go cut Lester Hayes. This is when you were allowed to cut block at the receiver position. Yeah, outside. So I'm just going to run out there and just chop him. And he does it, chops him down. And apparently, I didn't know this. And I'm not going to mimic what Chris said. He does it better than I do. But Lester Hayes had a really bad stutter. When he was talking to trash. And so he stutters 30 times, if you do. And then but he pretty much was saying, if you do this again, I'm going to poke your eyes out. And then started to shove these stickum things in his eyes. And the ref was laughing, not even trying to split him up, but laughing. And Chris is trying to hide from Lester Hayes' stickum hands in his eyes. But it was different, because that was the other thing he said, how you catch footballs and how much people hit you back in the day. He said people would aim for your chin. They said they wore a helmet on the chin back in the day, and that's just next level, dude. You don't see that anymore, man, unless your Vontae's perfect. No one's doing that, man. No one's headhunting like they were back in the day. But it was a fun dinner. Fun hanging out with Chris and the guys there at Jeff Ruby's. Any highlights from you, man? I heard you had a pretty decent weekend.
I was at a wedding, my buddy's wedding. I was one of the groomsmen. Saw a friend of the pod, Nick Ballore.
Nick Ballore, absolute stud.
Yeah, I mean, Pro Bowler, Nick Ballore. He re-signed with Seahawks. He
was also the one who got death threats for a little bit of a late hit on CeeDee Lamb or something. Or what was that? Yeah, what was that?
He tackled CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb got hurt on the play. It was in no way a dirty tackle. And he was like, oh, you went for his knees. It's that's kind of where you're supposed to aim nowadays. It's that guy's knees. And it's on special teams. And that's when CeeDee Lamb, it was a minor injury. And he was showing me on Instagram. He was just scrolling through his unread DMs, and it's just you son of a bitch, you cheap shot, you dirty motherfucker. And then comments on all his posts are the same thing. And it's fandom. Go back to it. It's especially Cowboys fandom. It's a problem. But he that was a good time. There wasn't a good time when he forklifted me on the dance floor.
Explain to the listeners what a forklift is.
Is when you just get picked up with one arm from behind between your legs. Didn't love that. Actually, I thought it was actually hilarious. He obviously did too. And he thought it was so funny that my other friend ended up forklifting me. So I was just that was the mark. That was the mark at the wedding, but because I enjoy stuff like that.
A double forklift.
Not enjoy. Okay, not saying I enjoy stuff like that made it sound weird. It's more
no, I think you do enjoy it,
and they know that I won't get upset about.
All right, I want to reset before we get into the defensive players. Like I said on the audio only intro here, we have the defensive prospects, top 3 defensive prospects in the 2022 NFL draft here. But we're also I want to reset. We're doing one podcast episode a week for about the next 4 weeks. Yes. These are going to come out Wednesday nights, one podcast episode a week. Giving producer Mike Quinn, David Sofaro a much needed break, Mike a much needed break, trying to split up things as we prepare for July and a July 19th rebrand.
Also, there's not much to talk about.
There's not a lot to talk about. It's a summer. It's a summer. But July 19th, be on the lookout for a 2-for-1 Drafts rebrand. We're super stoked about it. We're going to get back to 2 episodes a week starting that first week, July 19th, when we do pull off that rebrand there. But for the next 4 or 5 weeks, we're going to do 1 episode a week coming out Wednesday nights. Also have to introduce a new member of the show, new producer on the show, Max Chadwick. Find him on Twitter. I don't know his Twitter handle, but go search Max Chadwick. He works with the Boomer Bust podcast, is now a new social media production intern here at PFF. He's going to be a new producer working alongside David Zofaro, Mike Quinn, us both, to make the 2-for-1 Drafts podcast as good as it gets. Last update here, if you are watching on YouTube, not only do we have the Camel's helmet, we now have candles. We have candles from Mr. Spurrier here. Follow him. He reached out on Twitter and said, hey, I know you guys are trying to get stuff for the podcast. He works in this candle industry where they turn old beer cans into candles. And we have him here. He got you a high noon one, and he got me some quote unquote hipster IPAs. Perfect for our brand.
I was gonna say that felt on brand.
You almost started to drink that this morning.
I might end up just picking it up out of habit, Watermelon, fantastic flavor. Probably not my favorite. Pineapple's probably the best, but watermelon's up there in terms of high noon flavors.
Big shout out to Mr. Spurrier. If you guys want to send us some stuff, reach out. The biggest thing we need right now are smelling salts, though. We're low. We're low on salts. Anything medical grade, send those in. Yeah,
we just burned through the last one we had in the studio, so I'm going to have to re-up my supply. I'm going to go have to check in with my dealer, Amazon.
Nice. Yeah. That's a good dealer. Jeffrey Bezos. All right, let's get into this defensive prospects here. We're going to start with defensive tackle.
Yes.
And no better man to start with than DeMarvin Leal. This guy, I watched a lot of his tape yesterday. I mean, he's definitely the favorite to be the top defensive tackle off the board. And I don't know. I'd be interested to see who's going to unseat this kid.
I don't think it's close right now. And I know we put out the quote graphic from Seth Galina, friend of the pod, PFF's own college football analyst, who said Kayvon Thibodeau is going to unseat whatever, the string of quarterbacks going number 1 overall. I don't even know if he's going to be the first overall defensive player drafted, Kayvon Thibodeau. DeMarvin Leal could be. May have a little bit of a more rare skill set. A little bit. Now, so he plays, DeMarvin Leal, 6'4", 290. And he played mostly edge at Texas A&M. But like when he's on the interior, this guy's going to be, I believe, on the interior in the NFL. Like he's 6'4", 290 is only a sophomore. So this guy's going to get bigger. And over his final 8 games in 2020, 31 pressures. He has some ridiculous juice, even if you're just comparing him to just edge guys. And he's 6'4", 290. He had this awesome play against North Carolina where he beats, it's like a power RPO. So like you got a mesh point and you got a guard pulling across the formation. He beats the puller and all the way to the mesh point and gets to, I believe it's Michael Carter, like right at the handoff point. And just the explosiveness for a guy at his size to be playing off the edge in a 2-point stance on that play is kind of absurd. And like I said, I think he's going to end up as a defensive tackle. I would consider him if I'm like an NFL evaluator. That's just a 290-pounder.
Yeah.
Those guys are interior players now. And for him to be doing what he did as a sophomore, I'm not, like I said, I'm not sure that it's set in stone that Kayvon Thibodeau is going to be first defensive whatever off the board. Because there's some, we talked about last year, Mike Parsons, only blue chip defensive player. There's already Leal, Thibodeau, and then we'll get to some other guys that I think are blue chips already in this defensive class.
DeMarvin Leal, already a blue chip player, 6'4", 290, plays for Texas A&M, an 88.3 PFF grade this past year. And I think what you really like down the stretch, I watched a lot of his games down the stretch, LSU, Auburn, Tennessee, North Carolina. This guy was getting better. You saw him developing as a young, true sophomore. 78.4 PFF pass rushing grade against Auburn, 80.1 against Tennessee, and then a 73.8 against North Carolina in the bowl game. 4 pressures, 3 pressures, 5 pressures. When you're getting pressure like that at his size, the explosiveness, that's what matters. We talk a lot about defensive tackles and which ones are those blue chip talents in the NFL. It's these guys that can be 3-down players that have the explosiveness to win early in the snap, and that's what you see from Leal as a true sophomore in the SEC. Like this is rare talent, like you said.
And it's like, how do you want to win? Do you want to win with explosiveness, like you mentioned, like first step? He can do that. Quicks, you want him to shake you. He can do that. Hands, he's got that power, like length. Ticking a lot of boxes here. He really is. This dude's like I said, a very good DT prospect at this point.
Marvin Leal, Texas A&M. All right, let's jump to Jordan Davis, Georgia defensive tackle. I think his nickname should be the Behemoth. 6'6", 330. He's like perfect for what Georgia wants to do on defense with their DTs. Like we want big, monstrous dudes that do not get moved in the run game, and he just doesn't.
Yes, he is a specimen. This guy, like he is a big dude on a defensive line full of big dudes there at Georgia. Like he stands out just visually from the snap. And I wrote here in my notes, so like a lot of people describe, the big athletic DTs as dancing bears. No, this guy's not dancing.
He's just a bear.
He's posted up on the corner like that you don't want to fuck with in the club. This guy is not dancing. He is going right through you, and that's all he's trying to do. And that's kind of also the beauty and the beast of it. That was terrible. The good and the bad with him is that he really has there's no secondary outside of just going right through the offensive lineman that he's lined up across from his chest. That's all he tries to do, snap after snap. Runs a little hot and cold. Like his ability to play roll low at his size, the ability to like stay and fire out of his stance is special, but it's inconsistent and it doesn't show up every snap. And that's why he comes back to school here, even after a fairly solid junior campaign, returns to Georgia because it's just not quite there yet. The production is not matching. 76.1 overall grade is not matching his physical tools here with Jordan Davis.
Yeah, I think as a pass rusher, only 16 pressures in 3 years there at Georgia on 382 pass rushing snaps. Like, you are not getting a pass rusher in Jordan Davis. He is that 2-down, run-stuffing, 2-gapping potential defensive tackle in the NFL.
Yeah, this DT class, like Leal, and then it's not even close, Jordan Davis. Like there's a chasm between those two. After Leal, like the DT class is looking a lot like this past year's DT class.
I mean, there's an opportunity for a conversation there in that, we talk a lot about how the game is changing and why we're seeing so much receiving talent and, the tight end position. But for defensive tackle over the past 2 years now, not seeing like these game-changing talents, obviously Derek Brown a few years back, but like how much of that is that the NFL defensive tackle is changing? Like the best defensive tackles in the NFL are lighter, they're faster, they're quicker, it's more explosive. While in college, you're seeing Jordan Davis's coveted. You're seeing guys that can stop the run first more coveted. Do you think that there's a gap between what an elite defensive tackle in college football looks like versus what an elite defensive tackle in the NFL looks like?
I honestly think it's more just fluke. It's just 2 years. Like I said, 2 years before that, you had Kinlaw and Brown. Then you had Quinnen Williams. Like, I think it's kind of just a momentary.
Just a lull.
Yeah.
Just a lull in talent.
Yeah. That's how I would describe it.
Fair enough. All right. DeMarvin Leal, by the way, former 5-star, I think 2019 recruiting class. And for Jordan Davis, former 3-star from the 2018 recruiting class. Let's go to Jermaine Lowell. And this is a good tease.
Lole.
Lole? Is it Lole?
Yeah.
I apologize. I'm talking to Herm Edwards today, head coach at Arizona State, talking to him about Lole. Make sure I'll say Lole. This past year at 85.9 PFF grade on just 258 snaps. Didn't have an opportunity to play a ton, obviously, with the Pac-12 limited schedule. But there's a lot of excitement around this kid. I was talking to Anthony Tresh, college analyst here at PFF. He likes Lole a lot, and he is one of the stars on defense for Arizona State.
Yes. So listed at 6'1", 310, which means he might be scraping 6 foot.
And he might be like 300 flat.
No, he's probably about 310. This guy's a chunk. Yeah. We need to come up with some millennial scouting terms because he's definitely a chunk. Like some new age. That is the best way to describe him. He is a leverage demon. You just like can't get underneath this
I like
guy.
leverage demon.
Leverage demon. He that's what he is. You're not getting underneath him. He's a plus athlete at that size. Like he moves very well, very reminiscent of a guy like a Mike Daniels in that. NFL doesn't draft the short-armed 6 foot 6'1" DTs highly. Like Aaron Donald had about as good a tape as you can possibly have, and he still went 13th, 14th was it? That just doesn't. They're not going to covet. They prefer DTs to look like Derek Brown than Aaron Donald. So Lole is not going to get. This isn't going to be a first round type of guy, but I think you're going to get a very productive defensive tackle with his, like I said, not only that leverage, but he also has one heck of a quicks to him. He had a Euro step against the UCLA right guard that he didn't get touched. You don't see often a defensive tackle rep where the opposing offensive lineman does not even make contact with him. There's not a lot of guys that possess that level of quickness at that position. And he didn't even get touched, and he didn't even have to swat away the offensive lineman's arms. It was pretty special. So this guy has that juice that if you are on the side, you got to have to get by. Like you do, but I think he has it. 18 pressures in only 4 games last year. He was pretty impactful for Arizona State.
Who is our honorable mention here for the defensive tackles? Is it DJ Dale? We got Devondre Sweat, Fedarian
Mathis. I will say this guy's a little off the beaten path, and it is Houston defensive tackle Logan Hall.
Okay.
He is 6'6", 260 pounds only, but he plays 3 tech at Houston, right? So this guy is interesting. 90.2 pass rusher grade this past year. There's a rep where him and what's his face, the guy who just got drafted last year,
The Saints. What's his name? I'm losing it.
Peyton
Turner.
Peyton Turner. Where him and Peyton Turner both beat their opposing offensive linemen, chased the quarterback out right of the pocket. It's Logan Hall who's making up ground faster than Turner. This guy has some explosiveness to him at that size, but obviously like that body type, 6'6", 260 is not a traditional. That is too light to play on the interior in the NFL. He's going to have to get bigger, but that's all he plays. He was not an edge guy this past year, and still earned, like I said, 90.2 pass rush grade. So I'm excited to see what he does here coming into he's going to be a senior this upcoming season.
Just to highlight some of the names I was mentioning, DJ Dale, former 4-star at Alabama, has not played a ton, has not graded super well in PFF system, but a guy to look out for. I think Fedarian Mathis, I think he's from the 2017 recruiting class, but a former 4-star. And then Devondre Sweat.
Big boy.
Oh my goodness. 6'4", 350. Guy is a monster. Again, not one of those Texas types that maybe isn't, out of Texas. Isn't one of those guys that you're looking at as an elite pass rusher at the next level. Only 11 pressures this past year, though a 73.5 pass rushing grade. I do think that when you're looking for those types, and we talked about this a ton ahead of the 2021 NFL draft, when you're looking for those 2-gapping monsters, you start to look at day 2, day 3. Devondre Sweat is when those guys like, hey man, you know what he's going to do? He's not going to be this. He's going to be this. He's going to be that run stuffing player. Some interesting defensive tackle types already. Some names to watch as we enter this upcoming season. Shall we get to Kayvon Thibodeau and his boys? Because Kayvon Thibodeau right now, for the edge is number one. It's number one. And would you say the gap between him and the next edge is as big as the gap between Leal and the next defensive tackle? No,
I don't think so at all. I like this edge class.
Okay.
I think it's going to be, should these guys all declare, I think we're going to get a pretty solid group here. And Thibodeau is like pretty easily number one on this list. And now this past season, the guy was an Iron Man. He played 473 snaps in 7 games. Almost 70 snaps a game. It just doesn't come off the field. And over his final 3 games, 23 pressures. Like, he was really the best player on the field every single game. That's Cal, USC, Iowa State. And it just showed rep after rep. And now his efficiency took a bit of a hit. So as a true freshman, earned 79.9 pass rushing grade. This past year only 72.9. But if you just go back and watch the tape, there's a lot of just like schemed nothing reps. He's not getting great opportunities in that Oregon defense. Not a lot of true
one-on-ones.
Yeah, they're just not getting great opportunities in that Oregon defense because of just how it's schemed and his role in it. And again, having to play every single down of every single game. But I think in terms of like the annals of PFF edge prospects, he's not up there with Chase Young, the Bosas, Myles Garrett. I wouldn't put him in that conversation. But if you just look back to kind of this time last year, we're talking about Greg Rousseau as edge one. Is a much better prospect than Greg Rousseau. Like much better off the edge, much more flexible, just like much more coordinated, uses his hands more consistently, is already exceptional in the run game. This guy's going to be a problem. At 6'5", 250, has that kind of all-encompassing edge body that everyone's looking for.
Do you feel like he can enter that conversation, or is that ceiling not in Thibodeau's game? I do think some of the concerns I had is that he's just not going to see a lot of high-end tackles on his tape. Like, you're not going to see Thibodeau against some like legit tackles in the Pac-12 this upcoming season. Yeah, he's an Iron Man, 473 snaps. When you're looking at college premium, which you can get on PFF.com if you subscribe to our college subscriptions, and you see players like Kayvon Thibodeau playing 70, like so many snaps. When you're playing 70 snaps a game, that is tough. So the Iron Man aspect of it is great, but still, are you going to see a lot of it against top competition?
I'm trying to think of the tackles in the Pac-12.
Jackson, obviously from Washington.
Not much, but. And you got to dominate. And I think he will. I think he'll be fine. But I just don't. Those guys were not only like those guys were all freaks. Bosa's maybe not as much, but then like out of this world productive in what they did already at that point. So I'd put him more in the Bradley Chubb tier of edges that we've seen.
Wow.
Which is this guy's gonna be very good. I don't think I just debate. It's just I'm not ready to crown him. Those guys you just like they were gonna be top 10 edge defenders. You just were in the NFL. You just could see. It's not that difficult when you're that high level of athlete and that productive already. But Thibodeau's close. It's close.
Cool. All right, let's jump to South Carolina edge, Kingsley Enagbare. I don't know if I pronounced that right. It could be Enagbare. I don't know. We're going to get there.
I think the latter is Enagbare.
Okay. Enagbare. This past grading profile this past year, 89.2 PFF pass rushing grade, 23 total pressures on just 177 pass rushing snaps. Obviously, limited season with COVID-19. 6'4", 270. I think the pass rushing grade, you see it improve, over the past 2 seasons, and a lot of stuff to like, a lot of development, a lot of projection with Enagbare, but still some successful stuff this past year.
Yeah, and he's a big dude. So he's 6'4", 260 plus. And I think he can still get bigger. So again, that's ideal edge build, and the violence and just like every rep is awesome to watch. He plays with his hair on fire, this guy, and that's what you want. And especially when he's kind of a bull in a china shop, it just reminds me a lot of actually Peyton Turner, where it's like this guy has the things you want, but he's not quite there. I'm going to be higher on Enagbare because he's only a junior going up against SEC competition and earns an 89.2 pass rushing grade, where he's not quite there yet, which means his physical tools are off the charts. This guy with the way he can play, but just isn't quite there yet, and that's why I think he comes back this past season, because he would have been late first, early second if he comes out as a true junior, and obviously having only played 384 snaps, and this was a breakout year. He comes back, he can be a top 10 pick. This guy has top 10 physical tools. He is I wrote down quarterback hunter here. He hunts when he's like in space. The guy can fly. So I'm a fan of his game. And another guy that, like I said, it could be multiple guys in this class that are better than, have a higher grade than anyone we had in this past year.
Yeah, last year's class void of top end blue chip defensive talent. This year's class sound like we have some pass rushers, which a lot of teams are going to flock to. We had this past year, the pass rushing class in 2020 or 2021, everyone's like, I don't know which guy you want. You don't want to be the first team to take the edge because so much of it is projection with Kwity Paye and Jalen Phillips and a lot of risk here. It sounds like, already having Thibodeau and then Enagbare for South Carolina. And let's jump to Nick Bonito, a guy that I think people talked about, potentially coming out in the 2021 NFL draft, decides to return to school after what was an absolute breakout season for the kid. 93.6 PFF pass rushing grade there at Oklahoma. 6'3", 240, 49 total pressures. Down the stretch there, 8 pressures against Kansas, 6 against Oklahoma State, 5 against Iowa State, 5 against Florida. Guy's really turning it on, man. I think had some conversations with his agent as well. There are high expectations for Bonito this upcoming season. I think he's going to be a guy that will probably be on this podcast as we prepare for the 2022 NFL Draft, and one of those guys that PFF will maybe like more than others, considering the grading profile and those things.
Yeah, he understands rush pacing so well. Just watching his tape, he's always playing off opposing offensive tackles and always kind of making them wrong. And it's because he's quick, and like I said, has that understanding of how to win. For my money, he has one of the best Euro steps as a pass rusher I've seen in college football. Like he clowned Stone Forsythe, the Florida tackle.
Yeah,
tall,
weird body.
Yeah, 6'9", 310, whatever. That we said gave Azeez Ojulari fits. Like Azeez Ojulari had his worst game against Stone Forsythe of any tackle he faced this past year. Stone Forsythe in that grade, 43 in that game, bowl game. 43.7 pass blocking grade. And that's because of Nick Bonito. 5 pressures from Nick Bonito in that game. He was doing some dirty things to him. And that's like...
Forklift? Or
Not that dirty. But no, Forsythe, like that's sunk Forsythe's a lot of his draft stock, because you watch that game and you're just like, damn, that's going to be an issue when you deal with speed like that. And the worry with Bonito, you already touched on, 6'3", 240. And I don't think he's not Brian Burns. Brian Burns was, he's not that caliber of an athlete. He's 6'3", 240 and probably going to run like a 4.65. And you worry about that being like a Zach Bond-esque then.
Oh, that's a good
sort of prospect where it's like that. Just, you're going to have a plan B. And does he have a plan B? And now you see bull rushers on his tape at the college level. Like I think he can get there. I think if he adds,
really good decision to return to school.
Yes, but he needs to continue to put on some muscle. And the interesting thing was, so he showed up at Oklahoma in the 250s, and he's already cut down to get to 240. So I'd be curious to see if he can get his sort of like, obviously you're probably cutting out bad weight when you do stuff like that at the college level. But I'd be interested to see if he can continue to put on muscle to get to the high 240 range and maintain his explosiveness.
Producer Dave Let's see if we can get Benito on the podcast maybe before the season. See where his weight's at. See where his mentality's at. I kind of like this as a PFF guy to get ahead of. Jumping to your honorable mention here. Where are we heading?
My wild card in the edge class.
Is it Adam?
Guy I'm looking. You know who it is. Yeah. Adam Anderson from Georgia. 130 snaps this past season. Only 85 pass rushing snaps. 23 pressures on 85 pass rushing snaps. He's got just explosiveness for days. This is a former 5-star. Can't see the field there at Georgia because I'm guessing he could give a damn about run defense.
I mean, 6'5", 225.
Yeah, he's got an interesting build.
It's kind of opposite of what they asked. Like, this is not John Ledbetter. This isn't Jordan Davis. This isn't their big boys. Even Azeez Ojulari, who was 250 in that 250 range. Mm-hmm. Like, his willingness to play the run was a lot different than some of these other guys.
And so he's got a ways to go. Like the frame, he's got a frame to get to 250. Like he does. He just has wide ass shoulders and long arms for that size. Don't know why he's still at 225 pounds. But you see him bull rushing guys. He is explosive as hell at that size. Even like his first step was, I think I said on the pod before, better than Azeez Ojulari's. I'm like watching them one-on-one, and I'm like, who is this guy that's beating Azeez Ojulari up the football field? Against Cincinnati, he had 8 pressures on 11 pass rushing snaps, Anderson.
Yeah, I mean, Cincinnati, though, was also going through some woes along the offensive line, but still.
But, like, when he faces a guy who cannot deal with the speed, it's over. You're getting toasted. So, special athlete. Just curious to see like what he ends up doing. Like,
he's got to find the field, man. You cannot be playing only 100, 130 snaps as a true junior at Georgia as a former 5-star. Like let's see the field.
So breakout candidate here, and guy, like I said, it's your wild card, fun to watch, whatever.
Yeah.
Prospect in this edge class.
I know producer Dave is working to get Kirby Smart on the podcast. We get Kirby on. I can see what Adam Anderson's up to.
Yeah.
My wild card I was going to mention because we got Clay Helton on this podcast, and he talks a ton about Drake Jackson, a guy that he says he has not had a difference-making defensive tackle like Drake Jackson since Leonard Williams.
Oh, shots fired at fucking Jay Tufele and
well, I mean, he said there's certain players
suck.
Hey, that's what not. He didn't say that. You're putting words in Helton's mouth. He said, their opposing offensive coordinators are game planning for Leonard Williams, or were game planning for Leonard Williams, and that's Drake Jackson's the same type of guy. 6'4", 255, did not grade super well this past year, only a 71.0 PFF overall grade, but still, I think he's a former 4-star, former 5-star there for USC, a guy to watch.
If you thought you could have Clay Helton on the podcast and I wasn't going to talk some shit, you just were
true, because you're just a USC hater, man. You need to stop. Notre Dame hasn't won shit. Okay, everyone's like Notre Dame gets auto bids into the playoff because more people will watch it.
Yeah, when they go undefeated.
Wait till they get into the 12-team playoff. You saw that being proposed for 2023. 12-team playoff, and Notre Dame's like the 2 seed and got to play like any good football team. They're gonna get rocked. They're just gonna get rocked. All right. Anyway, linebacker.
People act as if they didn't lose to the national championship every time they've been in the playoff or the national championship game.
It's true. San Diego State's on the rise. Anyway, let's go linebacker here. Give us your start. Wait, before you do. Let's pay some bills here. Western, Southern bills. In these uncertain times, life is full of questions. Like, when should I start thinking about life insurance? But however difficult these questions may be, Western Southern can help you answer them. Backed by over 130 years of experience, together we can look ahead to leave the unknown behind. Western Southern Financial Group, life insurance, retirement, and investments. Let's jump now to the linebacker position.
Yes, let us. We're going to kick it off with another. Did we just end with the Georgia guy? Yeah, we did.
Georgia's got some talent.
Boy. Georgia does, dude. And they got transfers coming in that we'll talk about a little later when we get to the cornerback class. Who else do they all have transfer in?
I think they had a handful of guys. Oh, that other cornerback just transferred over. They
got Tyke Smith that transferred in at safety that we'll talk about. And then they have the Clemson guy.
Darian Kendrick. No.
Darian Kendrick. There you go.
Former 5-star wide receiver.
Yeah. So they got some dudes coming in on defense, and they already have some dudes.
They got JT Daniels under center. I'm starting to get a little interested.
I'm not as interested about that. But N'Kobe Dean, the linebacker for them, ended up taking Monty Rice's job, 3rd round pick last year. Monty Rice, 3rd round pick, even though he didn't even, I think it was 3rd round pick, end of the 3rd round. Didn't even start. Was a backup because of this dude, N'Kobe Dean, who is he's an explosive, 6 foot, 220 pounder, but at no point am I like, this guy's too small. Like he's kind of he's like if Jeremiah Koromoa got to play between the tackles and got to take on blocks, I think it would look like what N'Kobe Dean did this past year. Excellent run defender. He will meet a offensive tackle, pulling guard, whatever, in the hole with bad intentions. He will stack and shed, even though, again, 6 foot, 220, that's undersized, and like the length is not going to be what you ideally would want. But man, I'm not sure it really matters with the way he plays football. Like, he had one of the coolest plays I've seen from the coolest play I've seen yet from any of these linebackers, which was he is backside linebacker on an inside zone run, and the running back bounces it front side, and he chases him down from a straight line, which, like, thinking about that is an impossible play to make. And he does not like run towards his own goal line. He runs in a straight line towards the sideline and chases down a linebacker the running back who bounces out front side. It was, his explosiveness and speed is pretty legit, and you see it repeatedly on his tape. Like, going to the flat, he makes up ground on every single running back I saw. So this guy it's reminded me a lot of like Devin Bush's tape at Michigan, where it's just like
sideline to sideline was just nuts.
It really is insane. Now, coverage grade of 54.2 this past year. Linebackers were under siege in the SEC with Florida's offense, where he was just put in a disaster of a situation in coverage repeatedly.
He's also
on, like,
super
wheel
young.
Routes and stuff.
True sophomore this past year from the 2019 recruiting class, a former 5-star. I mean, he's got the athleticism, the speed, the explosiveness, the fact that he's playing snaps ahead of Monty Rice at that young. Yeah, I do think speaks to just how like talented he is. I think you know the length is going to be interesting. If he's listed at 6 foot, maybe he comes in at 5'11". You want to see him add some weight there at 220. Even though NFL linebackers are playing close to that weight, if you're going to be short, you're going to want to probably add some weight and still maintain that speed. It'll be interesting to see the project that is Nakobe Dean as we kind of press forward here. Christian Harris, Alabama linebacker, true junior. I think it's another former 5-star. Let me double check.
Probably.
That's he's former 4-star, 4-star 2019 recruiting class.
But he's 6'2", 232, a little bit more prototypical body type for a linebacker. They're close, him and Dean. I think at the top of this linebacker class, I like both of them. I think both probably ultimately end up in the first round conversation. They are talented athletes. You just see it, him with Dylan Moses in the same like linebacker core, just how much more active his feet are, just how much quicker he is to process things, and just the play speed was night and day. And Dylan Moses is fantastic athlete in his own right, but like Christian Harris looks more, and that's why we're always low on Moses. Like, I don't care about the high end athleticism when it's that level of just behind the 8 ball from a processing standpoint. I don't feel that way about Harris. He is exceptional at taking on blocks and keeping himself clean, but he's not the traditional. He's not like Dean where he's playing physical. He's kind of swiping left and right. And I think that's the biggest difference to me, is that Dean wants to hit. Harris, not to say he doesn't want to hit, but you just didn't see that as much on his tape.
That physicality, shedding blocks and stuff. But in terms of approaching the tackle, he still has.
Exactly. Yeah, he's still for sure as a hitter.
All right, last one here. Former Clemson linebacker, transferred to LSU, Mike Jones Jr., wore number 6 for Clemson, a 90.2 PFF grade, coverage grade in 2020. 6 foot, 220, in that same kind of mold as Nakobe Dean. Your thoughts on Mike Jones?
So I wrote down here finesse linebacker, and he played overhang at Clemson, and I think he transferred to LSU because I think he wanted to play actual linebacker, because Clemson's defense,
the amoeba.
He was not going to change roles, and it's just not as good for your draft projection to not do things that you're going to be drafted doing. So he has it, though, from a movement skills perspective, that just ability to mirror a wide receiver in the flat, or to flip your hips and just run with a running back on a wheel route. Like, he's got that level of smoothness is there. But again, played a very limited role where he's not really involved in a lot other than coverage. He's not taking a role in run defense at Clemson, and he was kind of a disaster as a tackler. He had slipped off a lot of tackles this past year. 13 missed tackles on 35 attempts is not a good rate.
That's a finesse rate. If anything.
That's a finesse linebacker rate. Exactly. So he will be Mike Jones. He'll obviously get a different role this upcoming season at LSU, and then obviously his draft stock will depend a lot on this upcoming season. But I'm still, either way, like with the level of athlete he is, I think he's going to be a fairly highly drafted guy. 4th round, I'd say, is probably his floor.
A common theme with these linebacker prospects: good athlete, got to have athleticism at the linebacker position. Now, I think I was on a podcast recently, and they're asking about how much that position is changing, and some of the linebacker. What's a linebacker you would take over the next 10 years? And part of me, I think I said Fred Warner first. Fred Warner being probably the best young linebacker in the NFL right now. But after that, it's like Micah Parsons, Devin White, like Isaiah Simmons. Like, I want these athletes. I want these guys that are young and these guys that can move because that's where the NFL is going, man, because they are getting picked on. Devin White, one of the most athletic linebackers in the NFL, was targeted 106 times last year. You are getting picked on at linebacker. If you are playing linebacker and you're in that off-ball coverage, you are going to see a lot of targets come your way. You need to make up ground. Chris Ballard says it best, and you're playing behind on defense. You're always behind the 8 ball, reacting to the offensive plays. If your linebackers are slow, it's going to show up. I mean, the Raiders have seen that for the past 15 years. Like, if your linebackers aren't athletes, it's going to be a grind. So I definitely think that common theme when we're talking about linebacker prospects will be, can they move? You got to have movement skills, sideline to sideline range. All right, who is our honorable mention here? Wild
card in this linebacker class is none other than Buffalo's Gaddafi Wright. This guy, so he's 6'3", 230, pretty long dude. 84.3 coverage grade in 2019, 90.4 coverage grade this past year. And so to have that kind of coverage grade playing, like I said, 230 pounds playing basically a glorified slot is impressive. And this guy can run. This guy can fly. He's plays a little high. You see a little clunkiness to him. And again, he does not really take on blocks or do any of the linebacker things. But again, 6'3", 230 with some good length for the position that can fly is a good starting point. And already with his level of production, I'm just excited to see. He's going to be a redshirt senior this upcoming season, which I don't know how the pandemic fucked up a lot of designations.
He's from the 2016 class.
He's going to be a 5th year.
Yeah, he's from the 2016 recruiting class. Was a no-star recruit. Buffalo's probably the biggest school that offered him. He had 6 offers total: Coastal Carolina, Delaware State, James Madison.
So he's going to be old.
He's going to be old. He's an older prospect. But guess what weight he showed up to Buffalo at?
195.
182.
Yowza.
He's added some beef. 230. If he's listed at 230, if he's actually up to a full 230 and is adding more weight at 6'2" or whatever he's listed at Buffalo, 6'3". He's listed at 6'2" back then, but still, man, that's interesting. Adding a ton of weight like that. Former no-star recruit, was a 2-star composite according to 24/7 Sports. Gaddafi Wright, not the 4-star, 5-star guys we were talking about before, but an interesting watch for Buffalo, older prospect. All right. Before we jump forward here, I need to let you guys know about the stock market for sports. PFF has partnered with Symbol. That's SIMBULL, the stock market for sports that allows you to trade sports teams like stocks and earn cash payouts when your teams win. Symbol has blended sports and the stock market to offer you a new way to invest and profit off your favorite teams. The MLB is in full swing for the rest of summer, allowing you to earn daily cash payouts, and the NFL free agency is still going. So whoever lands the top of the market player will be sure to see their team stock rise. Use promo code PFF and deposit $10 at symbol.app/PFF to earn a free PFF annual subscription. That's promo code PFF with a $10 deposit at symbol.app/PFF to earn a free annual subscription. Hell yeah. We are on to the defensive backs. This cornerback class is going to be sick. This quarterback class in 2022 is going to be freaking awesome, starting with none other than Derek Stingley Jr., former 5-star for LSU, a guy that as a true freshman was one of the highest graded quarterback in college football. The highest graded quarterback in college football was a true freshman, Derek Stingley, I think in 2019.
Yep.
Battled injuries this past year, but man, he is a rare athlete. His understanding of the position, as young as he was in 2019 and still now, is just absurd. It'll be tough to see some of these other guys unseat him as the top cornerback in this class.
Yeah, and it's a ridiculous cornerback class. It truly is already. Making the cut down to 3, I was like, damn, I'm cutting
some studs.
Like first round type of dudes already that I see it on their tape. But Stingley even still pretty much stands out head and shoulders because he's a next level athlete. He is that uber all around, doesn't matter, he can do it sort of guy. 6'1", 195, so already good size. Not Patrick Peterson, not Caleb Farley maybe size, but 6'1", 195 is ideal. And legit 4.3, low 4.3s. If he broke into the 4.2s, I would not be surprised. He has that caliber of just juice, and even from a standstill, breaking on stuff, it shows wherever he is. And the biggest thing about Stingley, why it's you can put him head and shoulders above this cornerback class, is they play press man at LSU. They played more press man than anyone else in the country in 2019. Played a lot of even this past year, and a 40.3 completion percentage against for his career. 40.3, he just 20 pass breakups in a season and a half, six picks in a season and a half. He's awesome. The guy's awesome. He's top 5 pick
Man, I was on a podcast recently with Fran Duffy, who has he works with the Philadelphia Eagles, has the Eye in the Sky podcast, I think, or the Journey to the Draft podcast. And I do think that something he brought up, we talked a lot about like what translates to the NFL, what do you look for, what stats do you look for at the cornerback position. Ball production is one. Dane Brugler like swears by it, like get your hands on the football, picks, PBUs, that's what translates to the NFL. The other thing too, though, and you brought it up, is snaps. Like if you play a ton of press man at the collegiate level, you're going to approach the NFL with a lot more experience in NFL caliber concepts. And Derek Stingley has that by a lot. And I do think that, man, I'm excited to see him healthy. That was the biggest thing because you saw multiple times last year where he just didn't look healthy. And I think he's had comments about that. You've watched some of his press conferences. He needs to get fully healthy. He needs a full off season. We need people in the stands, baby. We need this thing to be normal because I think Derek Stingley, man, in a normal year, I mean, this is a legit tier 1 blue chip type of player. All right, number 2 here, you have Kaiir Elam. I think he's another former 4-star, 5-star player, recruit for Florida. They're a guy who's graded really well, very few yards allowed in Florida system. Kaiir Elam, give it to me.
6'2", 193, and he has that perfect blend of being physical without really taking advantage of the college rules and just like trying to bully kids. Who, number 3 on this list, we'll get to, takes advantage of the college rules. We'll just a little tease right there. He's maybe the most absurdly
go ahead.
physical. We'll get to that one in a sec. But Elam, that perfect blend, very physical at the catch point. This past season, 9 pass breakups, 2 picks on 54 targets. First career, only 42.9 completion percentage allowed. Honestly, just in terms of how well they play the cornerback position at this point, I'm not sure he's like too far off from Derek Stingley. Stingley's just on another level athletically, though, from Elam. Elam's a good athlete, not an exceptional athlete, but he is big, physical, and already so steady and sees the game at such a high level. You can see the tape study on his film again and again. Go back to the Tennessee tape from this past year against Josh Palmer, and man, he gave Palmer more trouble than Surtain gave Palmer. Like, he fared better in that game. 3 targets, 1 catch, 9 yards. Had a PBU against Palmer, and another one that didn't go down as a PBU, but he definitely broke it up. He cut Palmer off on his route. There's a lot to like about Elam, and his game is definitely NFL translatable as well as he's played 89.8 coverage grade as true freshman, 81.0 this past year.
Yeah, another young player that's entering his true junior year there.
Yeah, all these guys, top 3.
He has a deep track background too. He ran a ton of track in high school. I remember looking at that when we were preparing for potentially entering a sooner, or not entering a sooner draft class, but looking at some young breakout candidates, that's for sure. Kaiir Elam. This next player, man, this entire city is around him. University of Cincinnati cornerback Ahmad Gardner. I think he goes by Sauce. It's Ahmad Sauce Gardner. We're going to try and get him on the podcast. Him and Myjai Sanders, who we didn't bring up with the edge defenders, but man, I like him a lot too. I think that's firmly a day 2 type of player that can potentially vault into the top 50 with a really good season. He needs to be the best edge defender in the American Athletic Conference. People talk about Desmond Ridder, Ahmad Gardner, Myjai Sanders, these 3 potential 2022 draft prospects. Go out there and be the best. Go out there and be the best in that conference because you're more than capable of doing it. But Ahmad Gardner, not to steal the thunder, but man, his grading has been fantastic. His advanced coverage metrics, yards allowed per coverage snap, yards per target, passer rating when targeted, all these things. He's been dominating, and he's a physical dude, man. This guy plays mean, and you see it show up.
Yeah, physical. I'm not sure I've seen a guy play as physical as him in college, or attempt to bully people as much as he does. And like I said, utilize the lack of illegal contact penalties as much as he does. And it's also kind of unfair because the receivers he's going up against, they have no recourse.
Yeah.
Like they're not athletic enough to get off of him. And so 7 penalties this past year, 9 games. That's crazy. Like that is absurd for a cornerback in college football. It just doesn't happen. But it does with Gardner because of the
how
way
many non-called though? How many penalties weren't called?
And if that was the NFL, he would be it'd be triple that easily. But he is long as hell.
I'd rather have that. So let's have that conversation. We talk a lot about the Georgia guys that get their hands on players. I mean, DeAndre Baker, Stokes would get physical with guys sometimes, or try and catch guys. You bring that up, catch guys when you're playing off coverage, and as soon as they start to blow by you, you put your hands on them because you can do that. Would you rather have an Ahmad Gardner who is probably going to get flagged a little bit and you're going to have to try and tone down the NFL, or a guy that's a little bit softer, maybe a Fatu Melifonwu, who a guy's not going to touch you?
I'd rather have Kaiir Elam, who does it perfectly.
Oh, shut up. I'm saying between the two.
Between the two, tone it down, there's not a lot of guys who sucked in the NFL because of penalties.
Well, I'd rather have Jalen Ramsey, actually, so that would actually be better.
That's my Trevor Lawrence in the third.
I
can go Trevor Lawrence in the third. But Ahmad Gardner, he looks like he's got the pterodactyl build. He is absurdly long for a corner, 6'2", 188, a little skinny still. But my buddy was sending me workout videos of him. I'm like, dude, I don't really care to watch these workouts. He's like, dude, no, he's getting bigger. Like he knows that I think he's skinny. He's like, no, he's gonna get there. And I'm like, yeah, he probably will. Like, he probably will. 6'2", 188. He'll probably
workout videos are probably the tamest DM you get these days, though. To be fair,
6'2", 188. He's gonna probably get it up to like 195, maybe in the 200 range by the time he comes out. But again, you can't teach his physicality, and you can't teach the hips he has for a corner his height. And I think that's the biggest thing that got me on board with him, is even when he doesn't get that super clean jam or isn't like super in your hip pocket, he still has a recourse. And a lot of tall corners don't. A lot of tall corners rely on that. Like the Israel Mukuamas of the world rely on contact to stick with wide receivers. I don't think Ahmad Gardner necessarily needs that. And in Cincinnati's defense, he's played a lot of press man too. He's done a lot of things that you're going to do in the NFL. So I think very projectable. And again, for him to be as good as he was, true freshman, true sophomore, he's a dude.
Yep. 41% completion percentage allowed over 2 years, 40 receptions on 98 targets, and just a 35.3 passer rating allowed into his coverage over 2 years at the University of Cincinnati. But the more I look at the biggest stat, man, he's got 12 penalties on only 98 targets. That's insane. A bigger than 10% rate. Oh my gosh, that guy is cruising. He is a bully ball. That's gonna be. I mean, hashtag fun to watch. I'm all for those guys. So in college, I like. I remember loving watching DeAndre Baker play in college. Those guys that really rough you up like that, I think are hashtag fun to watch. All right, who is your honorable mention here, and why is it Andrew Booth?
It is Andrew Booth from Clemson, a rising junior, or I guess he might be a redshirt sophomore, who only has 400 snaps to his name. 219 career coverage snaps. But he might have the best pure feet of any cornerback in this draft class. And you know my feelings about feet in cornerback positions. It's Rex Ryan-esque in my love for the ability to just stay on balance. It's a big part of not getting completely out of position because you have clunky feet, because you can't stay in phase and can't be going where you want to go. I think he has exceptional feet, exceptional hips. Just need to see more of them. Again, 219 coverage snaps is not enough to know that this guy is going to be, a top flight cornerback in the NFL. So that's my kind of wild card in this cornerback class. I think he very well could get there. He could break into the top 2 here. He could be CB2 with how his movement skills will and should translate to the NFL, but it's just need to see more.
We don't kink shame here on 2-for-1 drafts.
Yeah, dude, I'm all in.
You're all in on the feet. You're all in on the feet. You're also in on balance. Balance is something you bring up a ton with a lot of different positions. Andrew Booth this past year, 72.1 PFF coverage grade, only played 192 coverage snaps, allowed 14 receptions from 29 targets, a 59.6 passer rating when target. Rising junior there, 6 foot, 195. Now on to safeties, where we can talk about your guy. I'm not going to let you spend too much time on him. I'm not going to let you spend too much time on him, but he is, man, I remember when you first pointed him out, I think it was the first couple games of the season. We're watching him out. I don't remember where we were watching him, but he stands out, man. That when you're standing out on that defense too, and every game he played, you saw him show up. Kyle Hamilton, junior safety there, 6'4", 220 for Notre Dame. Oh my goodness, they ask him to do a lot there. He plays a lot of different positions. Yeah. He's asked to do a lot of different coverage, responsibilities. But dude, he absolutely shows up. And I still think you saw in the progression of the season him get better down the stretch. And man, this upcoming year is going to be freaking sick.
He's rare. He's a rare dude, rare athlete. Said 6'4", 220. And I think he's like what people wanted Isaiah Simmons to be. Like Isaiah Simmons, I think is going to have to be, for his career, around the line of scrimmage in the NFL. I don't think he was ever going to be a guy who could, if you want him to line up not to bring back like Rex Ryan, but like Rex Ryan would line up guys on the line of scrimmage, then have him fly back to middle of the field safety. And Isaiah Simmons, physically can maybe do that, but I don't think he's going to be an impact player in a role of something like that. I think Hamilton could. I think Hamilton can be a Derwin James type of role where it's just, hey, ask him to do whatever the defense needs at that given time, and he can get it done. Like there's a rep against Louisville this past year, Tutu Atwell. He is playing off safety. He's kind of the guy rolling down in like an off cover 3. So he's not the deep safety cover 3, the middle guy. He's the guy kind of rolling down. And Tutu runs a dig against him. A flat-footed safety going to dig against Tutu Atwell, who is, second round type NFL wide receiver, known for his speed and athleticism. That should be a W if you're a 6'4", 220-pound safety. Not only does Hamilton mirror him on the route, he gets all the way around him and breaks up the dig route. Like, that is special ability from a safety. I don't care if you're 5'10", 190. But then again, he has the length and the size to not only be, like I said, in guys' hip pockets, but then break up at the catch point because he's bigger than the guys he's going up against. He's bigger than slot wide receivers. He's going to be bigger than most wide receivers he faces. So, yeah, he's got a very unique, just a unique skill set. Can't modify unique. And is very, just special. Like I said, a rare dude.
I mean, played over 400 snaps as a true freshman there at Notre Dame, an 89.4 coverage grade that season. And this past year, 580 defensive snaps played on the shortened season. Any concerns with the missed tackles, man? That rate scares me. 15.5% for missed tackles. Where's your mind there?
No, because he is very aggressive. Like, that stems from him.
I mean, you saw that on the dig. You see that when you look at his pass breakups. Talk about aggressiveness. 11 pass breakups over the past 2 years at safety, which is impressive. Ball production there is impressive. He is aggressive. He goes chase those things. He had 4 picks as a true freshman at Notre Dame. Like, he is aggressive, but I think that also shows up as a tackler.
Yeah, the tackling is more because it goes back to like him getting kicked out of the UNC game. He's not like stammering his feet and letting you run through him. He's running through you first. So he will miss tackles, and it's because he is a very aggressive down when he is coming downhill, and that's when he misses his tackles.
On to the Bama defensive back, Jordan.
Well, just a quick aside.
Go ahead.
Blue chip players. Him, Stingley, Thibodeau, Leo.
Man, at every position.
4 already. You had one last
linebacker.
year. One last year. I think we got 4 already this year that I would say. Those.
And you like Kingsley a lot. I mean, that's another guy.
And there are other guys than Kingsley and Egbury and Kyer Elam and this next guy at safety, who are not far off. Jordan Battle, Alabama safety. 6'1", 210. Played over 800 snaps this past season, an 81.5 PFF coverage grade on the year, 3 pass breakups, and a pick. Battle, I remember watching a ton of Surtain last year, and every single time coming away and saying, who is number 9? Who is this guy? He is making moves. And I think you say that every time you watch Alabama tape. I feel like everyone's like, oh man, I was watching this guy. And then this guy showed up. I remember same thing happens at the linebacker position along the defensive line. There's always that next guy at Alabama. And Jordan Battle, 6'1", 210 safety, buddy. This is the guy to watch. Yeah. And so if Hamilton didn't exist, we'd probably be talking about Battle as one of the better safety prospects in recent memory.
Wow. Instead, we're talking Hamilton.
Like, probably the best safety prospect since like Derwin James, and that was the 18 draft. So the last 2 drafts, this guy, I had already put him in the first round conversation. Not a lot of safeties get into that first round conversation. I think so. He started games as a true freshman, a few back in 2019, and towards the second half of 2020, you just saw the light switch flip. He is a just all around complete athlete, whether it's speed, explosiveness, hips, just that kind of whatever you want him to do, he can do. You saw him, playing man against the slot at times, and
he played a lot. He played a lot of different positions. Man.
Yeah, the guy could go one-on-one, and he looked like a cornerback when he did so. He's super willing into blocks too. Like he plays a physical game. He's not just a deep safety. He can do whatever you kind of ask him to do. I think the biggest worry I saw on his tape consistently was that he comes in a little high to tackles. He's not as wrap up. Like may not be even at 6'1", 210 your box guy at safety, which I'm not too worried about. That's not necessarily where I want my safeties anyway. But yes, Jordan Battle is a very talented prospect in his own right. Not quite blue chip, but again, he's kind of on that edge right now of maybe he could get there.
This past season, 243 snaps played in the box, 180 at slot corner, and then 377 at deep safety for Alabama. Next guy on this list, Penn State's Jaquan Brisker, 6'1", 212, eligible for this year's draft. I think he's a senior, coming up on his senior season?
Or redshirt junior, I believe. But
redshirt junior, gotcha. Only missed 1 tackle this past year. That's what stood out for me. Looking at his grading profile, it's 82.8 PFF grade on over 450 snaps. Talk to me more about Jaquan Brisker.
Yeah, so 2 years as a starter now, 85.4 coverage grade 2019, 77.8 this past year. Tremendous tackler, consistently physical player. That's the thing I wrote down, is just whether it's taking on blocks, whether it's, seeing a crosser and then collisioning the crosser, or whether it's at the catch point. I just think this guy plays a physical brand of football that's going to translate to the NFL. Then 5 pass breakups this past year, a pick in, again, limited time. with the shortened Big Ten season. I thought he could have come out and been towards the top mix of the safety class, but glad to see him come back to school. I think he can push his draft stock up even higher. He's not the athlete that Battle is. I don't think not the athlete that Hamilton is, but he's a more than good enough athlete in his own right to play in the NFL. To me, he reminds me a lot of just stylistically how he goes about his business. Adrian Amos. Now, not the same school scout, but former Penn State safety Adrian Amos and the way he plays in the NFL. That's just kind of what I see in Brisker, in that you're not going to look at him and athletically be like, oh yeah, that guy can play deep safety. He can guard, slots down the field, but then he gets the job done. Mm-hmm. And so I do think he can. So I kind of like the top of the safety class. I think it's a good class.
Your honorable mention is Tyke Smith, transfer from West Virginia to Georgia, 5'10", 200, played the box slot role for West Virginia this past year, 207 snaps in the box and then 333 in the slot. How do you imagine him fitting into Georgia?
Yeah, Tyke Smith, he's going to be interesting because he's listed at 5'10", 200, mm-hmm. which is already it's a running back. Yeah, and 5'10" means probably 5'9". And so he's got a unique build. And he played just the slot basically for West Virginia. And so I'm curious to see where he fills a role in Georgia. Obviously, they lost safety this past year. He could fill in there. And I list him at safety because I think slots are more akin to safeties than they are outside cornerbacks. But man, at 5'10", 200, like he blew up so many screens.
Yeah.
He would just kill wide receivers on screen blocks. A very physical dude, and he got involved in the run game too at that size, which, a lot of the slot guys, a lot of those overhang guys just won't kind of like let that be until a run really bounces out wide. But no, he was trying to go in and make plays. So a lot to like on his tape. And again, this year will be massive for his sort of eval because he's beat SEC, Georgia defense. That's going to be doing like I said, NFL things. And if he is playing,
he's only a true junior too, right?
I'm actually not sure about that one.
I think he is a true junior. He's part of the 2019 recruiting class.
Well, then he will be.
Yep, true junior. Over 500 snaps over the past 2 years for West Virginia. Played over 500 snaps as a true freshman, an 89.7 coverage grade for West Virginia, playing a lot of the slot there. That's tough, man. When you're playing a lot of the slot to grade as well as he did, you're breaking up a ton of passes. You're up and down the line of scrimmage. Like you said, blowing up screens. I'm excited to see how he fits into Georgia as well. Man, that is going to do it. We covered some ground there. 3 defensive prospects and an honorable mention for the 2022 NFL Draft. I think someone made a note in the YouTube comments saying none of this matters. Everything's going to change. That's true. So a lot of this is going to change. The rankings are going to change. But we want to approach the season with some players to watch here, man. You got to dive in. You got to highlight some guys. Got to highlight some guys. Yeah. But without further ado, let's go ahead.
Who's fun to watch.
Yeah, you got to know who's fun to watch. All right. Without further ado, we have to jump now to the interview I did with USC head coach Clay Helton. Now joining the 2-for-1 Drafts podcast is current USC head coach Clay Helton. Really appreciate you coming on, man. I'm jealous. I am jealous. I'm a California kid stuck here in Cincinnati. Seeing that weather behind you right now, I'm sure it's what? What are the degrees? Talk to me about the weather there in USC right now.
Well, Austin, it's 75 here every day. There's not a bad day. Low cool in the morning, warms up to 75 in the afternoon, and it's paradise.
Absolutely incredible.
It'll be my 12th season, and I thank God every day. I'm coaching in the Walt Disney World for coaches right now.
That's incredible. Yeah, so I'm from Oakland, but went to San Diego State. I know what sunny and 75 feels like now stuck here in Cincinnati. I'm glad you brought it up. Going to be your 12th year now at USC. I think you're born in Florida kid, went to high school in Texas, but now finally in Southern California, where everyone aims to be, finally there. Where I'd like to start, man, is honestly some of the coaches you've worked with. In the 11 years at USC, you've had some opportunities to work with Lane Kiffin, Ed Ogeron, Steve Sarkisian. Talk to me specifically about Lane first, a guy that I'm a huge fan of. I've followed him for a very long time. What are some of the principles or some of the philosophies that you feel like you took from or learned from Lane, obviously before taking on the head coach gig at USC?
Yeah, I've been very fortunate in my time here because when you say those two names right there in Coach Kiffin and Coach Sarkisian, those are two most brilliant offensive-minded people that I've been around in my career. I think both guys are extremely innovative. They're different in their play calling, but I think both are so ultra productive. In Lane's case, it's a lot like watching a guy play a video game. It's in slow motion. It was neat as a guy that had been a play caller at the University of Memphis and had been an offensive coordinator to be able to watch him and be able to adjust, not at halftime, but within a series, within a play. I mean, I remember there were times where he would just whistle real loud, and then all of a sudden Matt Barkley would look back and he'd switch the call real fast. And it was a lot of fun to be able to watch him. And I grew a lot as a coach from him, as well as Coach Sark offensively. Just really two innovative guys, brilliant offensive minds and brilliant play callers. It's the reason that you look up and they're two not only highly respected offensive coordinators, play callers, but now they're back in those leadership head coaching roles, and glad for them.
I'd love to focus more on that word you mentioned, innovative. I feel like the NFL over the past 5-10 years, there's been such an emphasis on innovation and creativity, specifically on the offensive side of the ball. Where do you feel like the NFL is going? What are some of these like innovative things? I think the jet sweep is starting to take over a little bit in the NFL. Obviously, seeing a high percentage of RPOs in the NFL and at the college football. I talked to Minnesota head coach PJ Fleck recently, a team that runs RPOs at the highest rate in Power 5. So I'm interested to know, where do you think college football, even the NFL, is really going? What are other innovative things that you're seeing either on the offensive side of the ball or the defensive side of the ball, where this league is going, where this game is going?
Yeah, you really saw it. I thought starting college, and you mentioned the two guys in Lane and Sark and others that really knew that the college game was changing. It was going from a pro style game to being able to attack grass. With our hash marks of field, there's so much grass to the field, and there's so much room that you have to cover, that spread offenses came to be, as well as tempo offenses came to be. And there was, all of a sudden you went from a pro style offense that was I right Z short A42 Tom Y shallow XN to cross. Kids were playing fast, and there was spread. They were having fun. It was attacking every inch of grass, both vertically and horizontally, and it was hard to defend because of the tempo. And you saw guys like ourselves, like Coach Sark, like Coach Lane. You saw Dabo do it at Clemson. You've seen Alabama change their dynamic with Coach Saban being there, who's a long time success at the college rank. He's adapted, and now you look at it it's filtering to the NFL. I give so much credit to Andy Reid. I mean, how long has the guy been coaching in pro style systems? And he saw it. And here's a guy that is so offensive, brilliantly minded. Goes, you know what? We will adapt, and we're going to acquire great athletes, be able to spread them around the park and use them in different ways that maybe the NFL hasn't seen. And you look up, you put a great quarterback within that system with great athletes around them, and go up tempo and go spread, and it equals a Super Bowl. So it's exciting to see how the game has changed, especially over the last decade.
I think another important person in this conversation is your offense coordinator, Graham Harrell, a guy who's been at USC since 2019, or I think in this role since 2019. Since then, USC passes at the third highest rate in Power 5, a team that likes to throw the football down the football field. What has been your opinion of Harrell and how he's developed, kind of under your wing there?
Yeah, I've been so impressed with Graham. I knew kind of what we wanted to go to. I'd been here, like I said, going into my 12th season, and 2 years ago, I sat here and go, gosh, I might have had the opportunity to work with the Robert Woods, Marquise Lees, the Nelson Aguilars, Juju Smith-Schusters, Deontay Burnett, Michael Pittman's, Amon-Ra St. Brown's, Tyler Bonds, and you just can acquire so many great receivers and skill players out on the West Coast, and as well as tremendous quarterbacks. And I said, you know what? You're seeing this dynamic go across the country. Yes, still like to run the ball. You still got to instill the run game. Still got to have that balance. But if you're elite in the passing game, it equals points. And I went out and hired a brilliantly minded coach in Cliff Kingsbury. Just didn't know he was going to get offered the Arizona Cardinals, which I was so thrilled for him to be able to get that. But I knew which direction we wanted to go, and I had watched Graham and seen what he had done at North Texas as a young coach, a guy that was coming out of the NFL, that was finding his niche as a college football coach, how quickly it came about, how dynamic he was, and just brilliant. And so I ended up making that selection, and man, to watch him go over the last 2 years has been fun for not only me but our kids, and it's putting points on the board.
I'm glad you brought up the receivers because you have worked with a ton of receiving talent. Also, former receivers coach there at Memphis, and you've worked with Juju Smith-Schuster and even more recently Michael Pittman Jr., Amon-Ra St. Brown. I asked the same question to PJ Fleck, who's obviously worked with a ton of receiving talent as well. Corey Davis, Rashad Bateman, Tyler Johnson. What do you feel like is the most important trait or aspect of a receiver when you are evaluating wide receiver talent? And on the back end of that, at the collegiate level, what do you feel like are traits or aspects that you can coach up, that you can develop? We talk a ton about on this podcast, what can you coach up at the next level and what's just God-given? What are those God-given traits that you just are prerequisites to being talented, whether it's in college or in the NFL? So what do you feel like are those traits you look for, and what are those traits or aspects you can coach up either at the college or NFL level?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because I think about the kids that have played for us, now men, that have played for us. But the one thing that they've had, they were total football players. Michael Pittman was as good an outside linebacker as he was a wide receiver.
Wow.
I thought Schuster could have been a first-round draft pick safety, and he played safety as well as wide receiver. I made the worst evaluation of my life when Marquise Lee walked in here. I thought he was going to be a first-round draft pick corner, and he was like, "Coach, I just need 4 days to show your wideout." It didn't take 4 days; it took 4 plays. And I was like, "Hey, definitely, you're a wideout," and he goes on and wins the Blitnikoff. So we've had a lot of success here with kids that have unbelievable offensive skill set but have defensive mentality. They're tough, competitive kids. Robert Woods was a both way guy. Juju both ways. Michael Pittman both ways. Nelson Aguilar was a safety running back. So I like those kids that are complete football players. Obviously, God-given talent. You can't coach speed. You really, speed and size are the two things that God gives you. And then the things that you can really hone in as a coach, you can teach them work ethic. You can teach them blue-collar mentality. You can teach them how to be a student of the game. You can teach them how to have attention to detail and technique and how to be a pro. But there's a couple things, size, speed ratio, God-given. And then that's why they put coach in front of your name, to go teach young men how to be pros. And we've been very fortunate in our time here to be able to see a lot of wideouts head on and play on Sundays and have a lot of success at that level.
I want to get to the quarterback conversation here soon, but one more comment on the receiver, specifically Juju Smith-Schuster. Obviously, hit the NFL in full sprints, playing with the Pittsburgh Steelers, playing alongside Antonio Brown. I think was nearing multiple rookie receiving yards records, and his production over the past recent years has kind of slowed down. People have speculated, can he stay on the outside? Can he be a number one in that Steelers offense? What's been your opinion of his development in Pittsburgh, and where do you think how does it get better for Juju Smith-Schuster? How does it get better for him after Antonio Brown leaving and him now working as that kind of number one guy there in Pittsburgh?
Yeah, you know what? The thing that I love about our kids, and I'll bring up two names that really hit home. There's no difference between Juju Smith-Schuster and Robert Woods. You know what I love about both of them? They're asked to do a job, and they do it. And whatever that role is, whether it's digging out a safety in the run game, whether it's being a lead blocker in a bunch set, whether it's making a play, given the opportunity to get the ball thrown to you deep, short, and intermediate. They do what they're asked to do, and they're productive. And I appreciate both kids because even while they were here, it wasn't about the amount of touches. It was, I'm going to make the most of my opportunity. Every time I get an opportunity, I'm going to make the most of it. So when I watched Juju, even last year, I thought, unbelievable ultra competitiveness. He still has that and still does that and still makes plays. So whether he's a 1, whether he's a 2, all I know is when he's asked to do the job, that's what he does, and it's probably the reason he garnered another year in Pittsburgh. To be honest with you, and I look forward for him to even have a better year this year. Robert was in that kind of that area too, and then all of a sudden. He gets with Sean McVay, and what happens? I mean, he accelerates it to the next level. So I look forward to the same thing for Juju.
One more player that you formerly coached, Sam Darnold, before we get to 2021 USC football. I'd be interested to know kind of your opinion of, obviously a ton of high expectations going to the New York Jets as a top 5, top 10 draft pick. And then, just never met those expectations in New York. A lot of that on situation. I've had conversations with JT O'Sullivan on this podcast about how much situation can affect quarterback play and quarterback development. How much do you feel that New York affected or slowed Sam Darnold's development? And on the flip side of that, now with Joe Brady, former LSU offensive coordinator, now with the Carolina Panthers, in this new system, DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, how much do you feel like that new situation could benefit Sam Darnold?
Well, I'm so happy for Sam. I think he's got a great opportunity ahead of him. He's with a great coaching staff that is surrounded with some dynamic skill players, and even invested even more, if you watch the NFL draft, in the players they're putting around. There's a distinct plan there. And so I'm really happy for Sam. I think it's a great situation for him. And just like with all quarterbacks, it's hard to believe, but Sam left here extremely young. 20 years old going into the draft. And I've always thought that whether it's college, elite college level or elite pro level, experience and reps and time help. He's got God-given ability, and he's got competitiveness, and he can make plays. That was obviously, even with the Jets, he made some dynamic, unbelievable plays. And now to be in a situation that he's in a situation he's extremely comfortable, he's excited about. He's got a coaching staff around him, really believes in. Got some skilled players around him that can really do some special things. I'm excited for him, and I look forward to watching him this year. I know he's excited about it. He's got a fresh energy about him, and he's going to surprise a lot of people. You watch. Having the opportunity to work with him, he's going to surprise a lot of folks.
Are you still in contact with Sam? Have you had any opportunities to talk with him or meet with him since he did make that transition to Carolina?
Yeah, no, definitely. We always text. He's always nice enough, whether we're winning or losing, to share something. I'll share something. But just after that, I texted him. I was really excited for him. I got to hug his neck the other day. We lost a member of our Trojan family, and Chris Brown, was at his memorial service, and it was awful nice to hug his neck and to see the man he's become. And Carolina is very fortunate. They've got a good person, a good man, and a really good player.
That's awesome to hear, man. That's awesome you guys were able to connect. Moving to, another quarterback, probably another future first-round pick, if not a future top 10 pick, in Kedon Slovis, a guy that this past year, according to an article from The Athletic, there was some struggles with confidence, his quarterback mechanics. There were some things that were off, and I think a lot of that was COVID-19 and how much that impacted the transition from 2019 to 2020 and the limited season and those types of things. Mm-hmm. Obviously, some struggles last year compared to his 2019 campaign, where, I'll add this, the most accurate quarterback in college football, according to PFF, that year was Kedon Slovis. And then you go into this season, obviously takes a little bit of a step back there in terms of meeting expectations after what was an insane true freshman year. What are your expectations for Kedon Slovis? What's next for him? How does he get back on the saddle and really prove what he was in 2019 and expand on that?
Well, I'm really happy for Kedon, because one, people don't realize, that position it's about experience. It's about reps. And you go have a great freshman season. You're thrust in that situation and does an exceptional job. And then all of a sudden you come in, and on March 15th they say, no, you can't come into work anymore, and you're not going to come back into work till July 6th. And then you're really not going to get to go back out there with your wideouts till training camp and have a chance to throw a ball. So when you lose that amount of time, and to be able to use those experience, those reps, those chemistry, confidence is built on experience and reps, and being comfortable with the guys around you. And so to be able to have an off season, and let's say this last season too, I still watched him in the most. The hardest moments go win an Arizona State game on a 4th and 17, lead us to a game-winning drive. Arizona 2 game-winning drives down the stretch, and then does an unbelievable job and shows his confidence in the last game, regular season game against UCLA. Makes 2 checks on the last 2 plays for a big conversion to Tyler Vaughn for a big play, and then checks a touchdown pass that was supposed to be a run to Amon-Ra St. Brown. So, you watched him gaze confidence as he gained those reps. And And now having this offseason and being able to watch him be around a Drake London and a Gary Bryant and a Brew McCoy and the guys that are around him, to be able to show his leadership skills over an 8-week strength and conditioning cycle, 5 weeks of spring training camp, now having a summer under his belt where he's going to get the player run practices, where he's going to have another fall training camp. I expect huge things from him. I think he's one of the best quarterbacks in the country. I think he's got a chance to be the best quarterback in the country if he stays on his progression. Obviously, we're a quarterback-driven league, and usually when you see the guys that have the quarterbacks in this league, those are the guys who win the conference championship. So I feel extremely fortunate that Keaton is here and going into his third year here.
And I'm glad you brought up the chemistry, because obviously some big shoes to fill in the receiving core. Tyler Vaughn's no longer there. Amon-Ra St. Brown, a guy that's going to have to step up there. Drake London. I know you spoke to, I think, in a recent press conference that you feel confident that you can spend Drake London's time on the outside. He can play on the outside. He has that versatility to play on the inside. How easy is it going to be for Drake London to fill these shoes? Because there's a lot of high expectations around this kid, a guy that a lot of people liked watching over the past few years.
Yeah. Well, I'm very excited about Drake's future. Just to watch him in his first season 2 years ago, watch his progression where the light came on about midway through that first season. Then he just took off. This last year with him and Amon-Ra kind of sharing back and forth, who's the go-to guy. Now it's his time. He's going into his third year. He's kind of taken that role of being able to be that Michael Pittman, that Amon-Ra St. Brown, that Juju Smith-Schuster, to be a guy that can go inside or outside. I mean, just a dynamic frame. I mean, 6'5" plus, 217 pounds.
My goodness.
Just runs. He's obviously he's not this guy yet, but he's in the mold of a Mike Evans. I mean, he just does stuff. You're like, gosh, that's a big man with little man skills. Yeah. And every day he walks out there, I'm just amazed by the plays that he makes, So, I expect huge things from him. He's had a really good offseason. He really had a sense of urgency to be great. Not that, I've had 2 good years, I'm going to get comfortable, I'm going to get stagnant. He really approached this offseason as, man, I want to be the best in the country. Help me get there. And so we've challenged him. We got him outside his comfort zone, going from inside receiver to outside receiver, and really grew as a player, as a person, as a leader. And so we're fortunate to have him. I know this. I pray every day he stays healthy, stays safe. We get him to the park because he puts points on the board. I know that.
6'5", 217, man. That is a rare breed. Is that what you're expecting him to play at this season? Is that a weight he's comfortable at? Because that's wild to me, man.
Yeah, he moves. Moves like a little guy. Has great release skills. Has really good speed. Obviously has that transition that you see I thought he was an elite basketball player coming he got recruited by our basketball team as well as us and was on the basketball team his freshman year. And so has those transition skills that you see in a basketball player, can play above the rim. Just a really special talent, and is going to be the next big thing, to be honest with you, at that wideout court.
Last thing here for you, Coach, and I really appreciate the time. It's another Drake Jackson, a guy that a lot of people have high expectations for as well. And we've talked about a lot of players you've coached up, some guys that have been fantastic at the quarterback and receiver position, but the defensive linemen that have come out of USC of late are no joke either. Uchenna Nwosu, obviously the guys most recently, Marlon Tuipulotu, J. Tufele, 2 guys that have been on this podcast before as well, Rasheem Green, Leonard Williams. Compare Drake Jackson to some of those guys. What kind of talent is Drake Jackson?
Well, I'll say this. When I first got here, we signed a young man named Leonard Williams, and he was the one guy in the league you had to game plan for. You had to know where he was. And Drake is getting to that point. The havoc that he causes, there's a couple guys in this league that you better know where they're at. You better be sliding to them. You better put a tight end over them. You better be chipping them. You better be doing something, because if you leave them in a one-on-one matchup, it's going to be hard. It's going to be a long day. And he's one of those guys. He's really, after 2 really good years, I think is ready to take it even to the next level. Has had a good off season. He's that same guy as Drake London, the 2 Drakes. They got this chip on their shoulder. that they know it's a big year, not only for our team, but for them individually, and they're not getting comfortable in their process. And they're really trusting the process and working extremely hard to prepare for this season.
This has been honestly fantastic. I really appreciate the insight, Coach. This has been awesome. I really appreciate the time as well, and best of luck this season.
Austin, really appreciate you, buddy. Thank you.
Man, all these coaches that I've talked to of late, Tom Allen, PJ Fleck, and now Clay Helton. I talked to Jed Fish yesterday, talking to Herm Edwards today. Just energy. Guys that just bring the heat with every time. And I think it's different because I interviewed a ton of players, obviously, for this podcast for the past year. I think we did 70 players for the 2021 NFL Draft. It's very different when you see guys with like media experience on the mic with this energy, and they can actually bring things to the table. I thought what he said about Sam Darnold and expectations for him in Carolina, talked about his youth a ton. I'm interested to see this receiver he's got, Drake London, 6'5", monster, apparently dominating in spring ball. Drake Jackson, a lot of love there as well. Excited for USC football in 2021, maybe 2022. No, yeah, 2021. Maybe you're not because you're a hater and Notre Dame stan, but still a lot of fun with Coach Helton.
Notre Dame for the first time since 2016.
Hell yeah. All right.
Maybe.
That's going to do it for this year. This episode. Definitely make sure you subscribe, rate, and review. If you are on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Get an update every time 2-for-1 Drafts is dropped on the YouTube channel. Make sure you rate and review the podcast as well. Until next time, Austin Gayle, Mike Renner, producer Quinn, producer Dave, and producer Max, new to the show, 2-for-1 Drafts.